Between 1978 and 2001, at least 65 women disappeared from Vancouver's downtown Eastside in British Columbia, Canada. The police largely dismissed the disappearances, citing the women's involvement in drug addiction and the sex trade. And even when concerned citizens reported a suspected killer, their pleas were ignored. For over 23 years, one man raped, murdered, dismembered, and disposed of at least 26 women at his pig farm. 33 if you use the DNA count, 49 if you believe the killer, and 65 if you're counting the missing. This is the story of Robert William Pickton, the pig farm killer. Hey y'all, I'm Chris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Podorf. Welcome to Hitched to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Back, everybody.
Yes, welcome. And for our friends in Nigeria.
Okay.
Gakwa o.
If we ever go to these places.
They're all going to attack me because they're like, you butchered our language.
You're that hello guy.
Yeah. Also, this is for our YouTube viewers. I've had a comment. Somebody told me, he said, oh, I love your dog, the way you hold him. The reason I hold him every time is because he barks incessantly before we start. The minute Chris goes in the booth, he wants in there and he just loses his mind. So
he wants his mama.
Yeah. So
what can I say?
I have to hold him just like this, and he's totally content and satisfied.
And for people who aren't watching on YouTube, I did have a question. Scotty is a Yorkie.
Yes.
He's a Yorkshire Terrier that thinks he's a 200-pound dog. Yep. He's also a rescue.
Yeah.
And we're still working on his manners.
And we love him beyond belief.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, yep.
Well, wherever you're listening today, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Then like, rate, and review the podcast, and other people who like true crime just like you can find us.
Yep.
If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. You can see Scotty and hit that subscribe button below.
Yeah, you can watch him not bark.
You can find us on Instagram at Hitched to Homicide or on X at H2H_podcast. Mm-hmm. And if you want true crime every single day, please go join our closed Facebook group, The In-Laws and Outlaws. Go to Facebook, type in H2H In-Laws and Outlaws, answer a couple questions, and you're in. Go join. Lots of fun people in there.
Yes, they are.
Good supportive group of folks.
Mm-hmm.
We really like them a lot. We also now have a Buy Me a Coffee link if you want to send Rob some coffee. Y'all, not even lying. We say this, but it's really true. We were ready to go, ready to roll. I had practiced my opening because I have to get through the whole thing without messing up.
Yep.
And Rob goes, oh, I need to make some coffee.
I know. I always go, oh, guess what I forgot?
Not even kidding you.
I got to have my coffee, though.
You can find that link in our show notes. It does say support the show. That is the link, because we've had lots of emails about how do we find the Buy Me a Coffee. Mm-hmm. The link will say support the show. I can't change that. That's just part of how it works.
Support my caffeine habit.
Yeah. Support his caffeine habit, please. But you can find that link in our show notes. It does say support the show, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/hitched2 and you will find us.
Please give me coffee.
We appreciate your coffee, all your messages, and your emails. Thank you for being with us each and every week.
Yes.
This case is mind-boggling. I'm pausing for you to say it.
Or mind-boggling.
Every time. It's very frustrating, and it has an update from this past May 2024, so just a couple months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Before we get started, let me thank some sources. Wikipedia, the Star News, ontheedgeofeverything.com, the Vancouver Sun, globalnews.com, Murderpedia, the Canadian Encyclopedia, the BBC, the CBC, All That's Interesting, the Globe and Mail, CBS News, and the Washington Post.
All right. Well, you ready?
I am.
Let's do it.
Robert William Pickton was born on October 24th, 1949, in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, to Leonard and Helen Louise Pickton.
What was the name of that? Coquitlam?
Coquitlam.
Wow.
He has an older sister, Linda Louise, and a younger brother, David Francis. He's the middle child.
All right.
Port Coquitlam is located about 17 miles east of Vancouver, and it sits on the north bank of the Fraser and Pitt River and is not to be confused with the adjacent and larger Coquitlam.
Okay.
Most people call it Poco. It was an area mostly developed as farmland, but as Vancouver has grown, so did Poco.
Okay.
He was Robert William, but most people called him Willie.
Where'd that come from?
Robert William.
Oh, Willie. Okay.
He's Bobby Willie.
Does he race a car?
No.
Okay.
He's Bob Willie.
Okay.
Robert William, they call him Willie.
Okay.
Willie's parents owned and operated a pig farm, and here's the history behind that. In 1905, William Pickton, Willie's great-grandfather, bought land near a mental hospital. That's called foreshadowing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
On this land, William raised hogs. His children grew up and raised hogs, and his children's children grew up and also raised hogs, all on the very same farm.
So it's just a generation after generation of pigs.
It is, and we kind of have that here in Kentucky, but it's generation of raising horses.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But in the late 1950s, the family had to move because a new highway was being built, the Lafitte Highway. So in 1963, Willie's father and mother, Leonard and Louise, bought 40 acres of swampland for $18,000. I want you to remember that number.
Okay.
And they had their farmhouse jacked up and towed to new property. Wow. So they came in, jacked the whole house up, moved it away, set it back down on the swampland that they bought for $18,000.
That's what you call moving away.
I've seen this happen before. Yeah. Have you ever seen anybody move a house?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've seen that. It's really, really interesting to watch.
Yeah.
But when they moved to this new property, Leonard and Louise raised their children, with the exception of Linda Louise. Before Willie is born, his sister would be sent to live with relatives in Vancouver because, according to his parents, a pig farm was no place to raise a lady. To which I say hogwash.
Yeah. Ba-dum-bum.
Yeah, you can raise a lady anywhere.
Yes.
Willie's parents are workaholics, and they run the family meat business. His father was a brutal man. He expected his children to put in long hours, slopping pigs and looking after the animals on the farm, even on school days. Mm-hmm. Willie's mom was, I guess, pretty demanding too, and she was more interested in the pigs than the boys she was raising.
Okay.
To the point where her own boys would show up at school unwashed and dirty, wearing dirty clothes. They smelled of pig manure, which is bad if you've never smelled a hog farm.
We lived out in the country, and around August, the winds would always shift.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we had a pig farm that was a few miles away, and that smell would carry. Holy cow. It was nasty.
Yeah. Hog farms and chickens.
Yeah.
Both. Neither one of those things smell great. But if you want your bacon and eggs,
there you go.
Gotta have it.
Yep.
So this aroma and their dirty clothes earned him and his brother both the nickname Stinky Piggy at school.
Oh, man.
And Willie actually had a fear of showers.
What?
He was afraid of showers.
Why?
I told you, they started out on the mental hospital land. It's going to go downhill from here.
Okay. Did he see Psycho or something?
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
But he would smell so bad that his friends couldn't stand to be around him. And only then would he bathe and in a tub.
Wow.
And if he's that dirty, he's just sitting in his own butt water. Sorry, I had to say it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're that dirty, you really do need a shower. You need to wash it off and not sit in it.
No, you need to go down to the firehouse and have them strap you up against a pole and then put the hose out on you.
Maybe.
Whew.
When Willie was a teen, he saved his money and he bought a little calf. And the little guy became Willie's prized pet. But when he couldn't find this little calf, his mother told him to go look in the barn. And that's where he found the calf had been slaughtered.
Oh.
His mom is evil.
Wow.
And even after his mother did this to him, Willie still is very close to her. He struggled in school and he was held back a few grades. Not the best upbringing, right?
Mm-hmm.
He smells bad. He's a little guy. He's not very big. He's not very attractive. And they're holding him back because he's not very smart either.
Wow.
He spent most of his time in special ed classes. So in 1963, when he's 14, he just up and quits school. There's a story about his mother and his younger brother, Dave, and this kind of says a lot about how Willie was raised. But when Dave was 16, he'd just gotten his driver's license. He took his dad's truck out, and as he's driving down the road, Dominion Avenue, he sees a neighborhood kid, a kid named Tim Barrett.
Okay.
Now, Tim's just walking down the road, and Dave drove the red truck, his dad's red truck, into Tim.
What?
He hits him with
Really?
the truck. Yeah.
For what reason?
No reason at all, because he felt like it.
Wow.
And Dave knew that Tim was hurt, like it's obvious that he's hurt. So he goes home and he tells his mom, well, yeah, I ran over Tim. They go back to where he's run over this kid, and after his mother looks Tim over, she rolled him and shoved him to the edge of the road where there's a trench that ran alongside the road that's filled with runoff water.
Right.
She pushed Tim in and then turned for home, but they didn't go home. They took the truck to a mechanic and asked them to bang out the dent on the front hood and replace the broken turn signal.
Wow.
The truck also needs to be painted, but the mechanic wouldn't do it. Now, I don't know why, but this all happened in the same day. He wouldn't do it.
Well, he's probably, it's not a body shop, it's a mechanic.
I guess.
Yeah.
Now, Tim's parents are out looking for their son, and they phone neighbors, and they go to the police station to report him missing that night. And the next morning, a neighbor and Tim's father search the road where he was hit, and they find a shoe. And they look around, and they see Tim's body in the water, in the trench. And the police arrive and pull him out. He's dead.
Wow.
And the cause of death is drowning. So he wasn't dead on the side of the road. She pushed him in to that runoff water.
Wow.
Even though he had a fractured skull, a subcranial hemorrhage, and a fractured, dislocated pelvis, he was still alive. Yeah.
Jeez.
The coroner said that these injuries would not have killed him. Tim Barrett was only in the 8th grade.
Oh, my.
A few days later, after his burial, the coroner filed a report listing the cause of death as drowning, but noted that the serious injuries were caused by a hit and run. And authorities and Tim's family ask around, neighbors, mechanics, and find out that Dave Pickton brought his dad's truck to be fixed the day that Tim went missing. And they realized that Dave committed a hit and run that killed Tim.
Right.
But it was really the mom that did it, that really killed him.
Right.
Still, Dave is sent to juvenile court. Willie and Dave's mom, Louise, was never charged, but apparently everybody knew what had happened.
Right.
So this is Willie's mom. This is his upbringing.
What an example.
Yeah. His mother, with whom he had a very close relationship. So this is like his mentor. This is who he wants to be when he grows up.
Yeah.
When Dave is out of juvie, he and Willie both live and work on the farm with their parents. But in 1978, Willie's father, Leonard, dies. Also in 1978, Patricia Gay Perkins disappears from Vancouver's downtown East Side. Patricia was born in 1956, and Patricia is the first known woman to disappear in DTES, or Downtown East Side, in Vancouver.
Okay.
She won't be reported as missing for 18 years.
What?
18 years.
Did they just wake up one morning and go, you know what? there used to be somebody here. What was her name?
Yeah. Well, here's why. Downtown Eastside, or DTES, is the poorest area in all of British Columbia, maybe in all of Canada.
Okay.
It's full of rundown hotels and pawn shops. Sex workers, alcohol, and drug addicts live there. It's Canada's Skid Row.
Gotcha.
They call it low track. So it's kind of rock bottom.
Wow.
There are biker gangs and Asian cartels who deal drugs, lots of crack addicts. And in this area at one time, it was the place that had the highest HIV infection rate in North America.
Wow.
So no safe sex. They're sharing needles.
Yeah.
The HIV infection rate has dropped there since, according to a 2017 study. But at one point, it was when Willie is alive and running the gamut here.
Mm-hmm.
It's really at its worst.
Gotcha.
Downtown is really at its worst. Downtown Eastside. After Willie's dad dies in 1978, a year later in 1979, Willie's mom, Louise, follows their dad to the grave and probably all the way to hell.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I'm sure.
It's at this point that Willie, Dave, and Linda inherit the farm. Willie and Dave are in their late 20s, and they take over the pig farm. Now, during this time, I read the two boys pretty much ran the pig farm into the ground. They didn't run it like their father, their grandfather, or their great-grandfather did.
No surprise.
I mean, these two were barely taking baths. They couldn't take care of themselves.
Yeah.
You know, they have a 14-year-old 8th grade education.
Mm-hmm.
So how are they going to take care of business?
Yep.
But it's after Willie's mom and dad die that the women from the DTES really start go missing, and in a big way. These women are all from this downtown East Side, and they're all either sex workers, drug addicts, or both.
Okay.
Rebecca Gu, who is 23 years old, is last seen on June 22nd, 1983. Sherry Rail, who is 43, is last seen in January of 1984. She won't be reported missing until 3 years later. Elaine Auerbach, who is 33 years old, Elaine's last seen in March of 1986. Teresa Ann Williams, who's 26, is last seen in July of 1988. Ingrid Soet, age 40, is last seen in August of 1989. Then on Valentine's Day, 1991, the families of the missing women, along with advocates for the sex trade workers, established an annual Valentine's Day Remembrance Walk, and they began to demand an investigation. And the police were really deaf to it, mainly because most of the women who were missing were drug addicts and sex workers.
Yeah.
Or both.
Right.
But the women continued to go missing. Marianne Clark, a.k.a. Nancy Greek, was 25 years old when she disappeared in August of 1991, and Kathleen Waitley is last seen in June of 1992. Then in 1994, the Pickton children are going to strike it rich. The swampland that their father bought for, do you remember?
$18,000.
$18,000 in 1963 was now valued at...
No idea.
$7.2 million.
What? Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
Jeez.
And they start selling it off a little bit at a time. They receive $1.7 million when they sell property to a townhouse development company, $1.2 million from the city of Port Coquitlam for a park, and then a year later in 1995, $2.3 million from the city's school district to build an elementary school.
Why couldn't my parents have bought some swampland?
$18,000 worth of swampland, right?
Yeah,
In 1963? Yeah.
Oh, man.
So they have just made $5.2 million in just 2 years. Divided 3 ways, they each have about $1.7 million in change.
Did they blow through it?
Well, after they strike it rich, Willie's brother Dave leaves the farm and moves less than a mile away, right near the same road where he hit and killed Tim Barrett.
Wow.
Now, isn't that rich?
Yep.
Literally and figuratively. He's got all this money.
Yeah.
And now Willie's all alone on the farm. And now he has the freedom and the financial resources to do whatever he wants to do.
I'm going to guess this is not a good thing.
Well, these women have been missing, has started going missing over the years.
Right.
But now it's going to accelerate. He and his brother Dave register their farm, what's left of it, with the Canadian government as the Piggy Palace Good Times Society.
What the heck?
The Piggy Palace Good Times Society.
What the heck is that?
They claimed it, quote, organized, coordinated, managed, and operated special events, functions, dances, shows, and exhibitions on behalf of service organizations, sports organizations, and other worthy groups.
Sounds legit. Jeez.
The Piggy Palace Good Times Society was a converted slaughterhouse on their farm. This non-profit, I've got my air quotes going, society was housed in a long tin shed on 2552 Burns Road.
Tin roof rustic. Sorry.
Oh, this one's more than rusted.
That's the first thing that came to mind.
The B-52s.
You got it, baby.
We're showing our age.
Yeah, I know.
Here's the funny thing. The Piggy Palace Good Times Society was visited by almost everybody in Port Coquitlam. Bikers, sex workers, drug addicts, 2 mayors, several city council members, local businesses and civic leaders, ice hockey moms, high school and elementary school kids. There were functions, dances, concerts.
Good Lord.
People used it all the time as a party venue.
Gotcha.
The Piggy, can you imagine putting that on an invitation? The Piggy Palace Good Time Society. That's where the party was.
Wow.
But now that Willie has money, he's not really into raising pigs anymore.
Yeah.
He's into throwing these parties, and the hogs were more of a hobby. He bought pigs, fattened them, and sold the meat to friends or roasted them for the bikers and sex workers and the mayors who came to the Piggy Palace.
He's got it going on.
Oh, he's got something going on, for sure.
Yep.
The unusable remains of the pigs that he has slaughtered, that he's given to friends or selling to friends or frying up there at the Piggy Palace. Pig entrails, brains, bones, nerve tissue, and gore were all taken by a truck to a rendering plant called the West Coast Reduction Limited.
What was that for?
Well, this plant takes animal bones, guts, fish, blood, pig entrails, and used restaurant grease. I can't even tell you, all of those things smell so bad. If you've never been around, if you've never worked at a restaurant and you don't know what a grease trap smells like, oh, it's awful. But this place takes all of these things and turns it into
soap,
consumer products.
Yeah.
Like lipstick. Yuck. Soap, shampoo, and even perfume.
Yeah.
Now, near the West Coast Reduction is the DTES, the downtown East Side.
Okay.
It's just 10 blocks west of this rendering plant where Willie is taking leftover pig parts. That's called foreshadowing.
Here we go.
Yes. And I like how you hummed through it, too. Now, Willie likes this area, the downtown East Side. I mean, think about it. He's not an attractive guy. He's not a smart guy. And he doesn't like to bathe.
Yeah.
And he would hang out at the seediest hotels. But yet, he's a millionaire, right?
I was going to say.
Yeah, he's a millionaire that doesn't take showers and slaughters pigs. And there were a couple of famous hotels, the Astoria and the Roosevelt. And according to the people who worked in the Astoria bar, Willie was a wannabe who would come in. He wanted to be a biker. He wanted to be like a Hell's Angel.
Okay.
But he's skinny. He was a coward. He didn't drink and he didn't smoke and he didn't do drugs.
Made him a perfect candidate to be a Hell's Angel.
Yeah, I guess.
No, I'm joking.
I mean, I don't know. When I read that he was a wannabe, I mean, does that mean he's a wannabe drug addict, a wannabe alcoholic? I think he just wanted to be a big guy. He wanted to be important.
He wanted to be a badass.
Yeah, he wanted to be a badass. Yeah. Very good. That's exactly it. Now, by 1994, the downtown East Side is averaging at least a death a day from overdoses. And more, the people who lived there began to notice that female sex workers and drug addicts were still disappearing without a trace. So people are dying every single day, but people are also just disappearing.
Right.
All of this is happening around the same time the Piggy Palace is in full swing. Now, there was a description from an anonymous party goer that I found in an article. This is a Halloween party he's describing.
Okay.
Quote, I arrived at the party about 9 p.m. It was dark and raining and muddy. There were lots of motorcycles, old cars, and a big pig roasting on a spit. There were kids in costumes, some dressed as witches. The little kids were running around and playing in the dark. There wasn't much light. There were lots of women who looked like hookers. His word, not mine. Don't email me.
Right.
The party spilled all over the grounds, and there were people in the house and in the trailer doing the wild thing.
Yeah. Jeez, and there's kids running around.
Dressed up as witches, yeah.
Wow.
I recall walking by a shack with a 40-watt light bulb hanging over the door and machinery was running inside. Here I got a death chill. The hair raised on the back of my neck and my feet froze to the ground. I didn't want to be there anymore. So I left and I walked home. End quote. Now, when he says it's a 40-watt bulb hanging, I just see it swinging. Yeah. It's like a horror movie. It's just swinging there in the dark.
Yeah.
And this was the account by most people who visited the Piggy Palace. It was wild, and people were doing drugs and eating roasted pig. And one person said, quote, I was about to eat the pig, but when I saw Robert Pickton tearing apart the pig with his hands, I decided not to because his hands were dirty, end quote.
Jeez. You know, this whole scenario that I'm envisioning in my head, it kind of reminds me of the movies Porky's.
Yeah, a little bit like Porky's. A little bit like Porky's, only worse.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. This is a raunchy crowd with lots of cocaine, lots of really, really badass people. And some of the people showed up and then just wanted to leave because they were like, yeah, this isn't
I'm tapping out.
My gig. Yeah, tapping out. But they would advertise for these parties, and sometimes up to 2,000 people would show up at the Piggy Palace.
Wow.
All the while, women are continuing to go missing.
Okay, so are they charging entrance, or how are they making money off of this?
Oh, I'm sure they're charging people to come in.
All right.
And then obviously, you know, if it's being rented by like the hockey moms
well, that's true.
For a party, I mean, people are renting this out for parties and concerts.
I'm assuming there's not a lot of things up in this area.
I mean, I think it's just a smaller area, but
yeah.
But it was like maybe the party venue that they had, you know?
Yeah.
And now I'm sure there are lots of people who have nightmares about having their party there. Just going to say that.
I know up in my small town that I grew up in Ohio, they have a corn maze. There's a farm that has a corn maze there, and it's a huge deal. So every fall, you know, after, you know, everything's been harvested and everything, they keep the stocks up and they do a big corn maze. And that's the big deal in my hometown.
Yeah. And they have like a little sign that says, if you get lost, don't worry.
Yeah.
We come looking once a week.
We have a drone.
No, they just come looking once a week. Yeah. Just stay where you are. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Yeah,
it'll be fine.
Scream as loud as you can.
All I can ever think of in those mazes is the Stephen King novel, The Shining. Yeah. Yeah. When they're at the hotel.
Yep.
But all these, like 2,000 people are showing up. Mm-hmm. All the while, women are continuing to go missing. Catherine Gonzalez, who was 47, is last seen in March of 1995. Catherine Knight, who was 32, was last seen in April of 1995. Dorothy Spence, who was age 36, was last seen in August of 1995. Diana Melnick, age 23, last seen December 1995. Stephanie Lane, 20 years old, last seen March 11th, 1996. Tanya Hulk, age 24, last seen October 1996. Olivia Williams, age 22, last seen December 1996. Cara Louise Ellis, a.k.a. Nikki Trimble, age 25, is last seen in 1996. She's reported missing in October of 2002.
So it's like a person every month or so.
a person every month or so, or more than one person in a month. Yeah.
Wow.
Then on March 22nd, 1997, Willie picks up a girl. Her name is Wendy Lynn Eistetter. He takes her back to the pig farm, and he handcuffs her. And somehow she gets a hold of a kitchen knife, and she stabs Willie. She stabs him. He grabs the knife. He stabs her back. She gets away. She runs to the road. She waves down a car. The people in the car call an ambulance, and she was taken to the Royal Columbian Hospital in Westminster. And I also read it was the Eagle Ridge Hospital, so who knows? It was one of those.
Okay.
But as luck would have it, Willie, who's also been stabbed, and Wendy Lynn end up in the same hospital.
What?
He's got stab wounds, right?
What are the odds?
She's in handcuffs in her room in the emergency room. He's in a room down the hallway at the hospital. And an orderly found the key to Wendy's handcuffs in Willie's pocket.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh. Okay.
Now there's a piece of luck, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The police are there, and when they question Willie, he tells them that, well, Wendy Lynn was a hitchhiker who'd actually attacked him. And the police are thinking 2 + 2 equals 4.
Yeah.
Willie was arrested and charged with attempted murder, assault with a weapon, and forcible confinement. In his own words to the police, quote, "I did not take the knife away from her. I did not take the knife away from her. I aimed it to her and I knifed her twice. I admit I did that," end quote.
Okay.
What?
Yeah. What did you say?
Yeah. Then he's asked, quote, "You've never taken any of these prostitutes back to your trailer?" End quote. And he replies, quote, "Not since this incident," end quote. Well, this was the last one, Willie. Yeah. Shouldn't have dropped out of school at 14.
Yeah.
And then the detective says, quote, "Did you take them back before this incident?" And he replies, and I quote, "Nope, nope, 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 nope." End quote. I actually counted the number of times he said it in the interview.
Didn't he just say not after this one, though?
He did. He did. And they were like, "But did you do it before?"
Oh, God.
And that's when he gave like the 9 nopes in a row. Nope, 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 nope. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But prosecutors thought Wendy wouldn't be a good witness. She was a drug addict, and they thought she's too unstable to give an accurate account of the incident in front of a jury. And sadly, the case is dropped.
Wow.
The Vancouver Police Department lets Willie go on a $2,000 bond, but before he leaves, the police confiscate the clothes and rubber boots that Willie is wearing.
Okay.
That's called foreshadowing.
Let me do it again. Ready?
We had 2. It was a twofer today.
It was.
The full charge, all these charges against Willie are going to be dismissed the next year. He's going to pay his $2,000 and then it all goes away. But then more women go missing. Helen Mae Hallmark, age 32, was last seen in August of 1997. Marnie Lee Frey, age 25, was last seen in August of 1997. Cindy Beck was last seen in December of 1997. Andrea Bohr, last seen in 1997. Carrie Koski, age 39, last seen in January of 1998. Jacqueline Michelle McDonald, age 23, last seen in January of 1998. Sarah DeVries, we don't have an age for her, but she's last seen in April of 1998. But she did leave behind a diary where she wrote in December of 1995, quote, "Am I next? Is he watching me now, stalking me like a predator and its prey, waiting for some perfect spot, time, or stupid mistake? How does one choose a victim? Good question.
Wow.
If I knew that, I would never get snuffed," end quote.
Whoa.
Which is pretty chilling because 3 years later, Sarah DeVries goes missing.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, by this time, Willie has hired a man named Bill Hiscox to work for him. He works for Willie's demolition business. one that he co-owned with his brother Dave. These two brothers owned like 5 different businesses and LLCs.
All right.
And Bill was a good worker. He did what he was told. But Bill thought something was hinky about Willie, not the least of which was that he'd told Bill that if he wanted to kill someone, he could, and, quote, easily dispose of bodies, end quote.
Jeez.
Now, you'd think that a man who never showered or bathed wouldn't have many friends, but he has a friend named Lisa Yelds. Lisa had gone inside the buildings on Willie's property, and while she's there, she sees bags of bloody clothing, numerous purses, personal identification items that belonged to women. And Lisa, who is friends with Willie, is also friends with Bill Hiscox, the guy who works for Willie.
Right.
So Bill Hiscox calls Crime Stoppers in July of 1998, and he tells the police, you need to check out this guy, Willie. He actually calls him a sicko and tells the police that he picked up prostitutes in Vancouver, Burnaby, and New Westminster, and Bill told Crime Stoppers that Willie would brag that he could, quote, easily dispose of bodies, end quote.
Wow.
And he knew that Willie had at least 10 purses and women's IDs. Now, a few days later, Bill calls back and gives Willie's full name, Willie Pickton.
Okay.
He had a farm in Port Coquitlam. Bill's still remaining anonymous at this point, and he also tells the police that Willie had killed, quote, Sarah, end quote. And police knew that Sarah DeVries was one of the many who disappeared from the downtown Eastside. And Bill tells police that he, quote, he, meaning Willie, might be responsible for all the missing girls, end quote.
Jeez.
Now, I told you Bill wanted to remain anonymous, but Detective Constable Lorimer Schirner tracked him down 2 months later so she could ask more questions. And Bill told Detective Schirner that he heard from a woman, Lisa Yelds, a friend of Willie's, that Willie had women's bloody clothing, IDs, and personal items that he kept as trophies.
Jeez.
And when police question Lisa, she's very uncooperative. You see, Lisa is a, quote, cop hater, end quote, and a, quote, Nazi sympathizer, end quote.
Wow. So she's got that going for her.
Yeah. And for a hot second, the police think they might put together an undercover operation to get more info from Lisa, but they don't put that plan into operation. They never put that plan into go. They never, run with that.
I wonder why they didn't.
Well,
Not enough information?
Yeah, and she's a sex worker and a drug addict.
Right. And she hates cops.
And
so they're not going to get any...
that's what they're thinking. Why are we going to put all this time and effort into it when we're not going to get anything from her?
No cooperation.
Now, Bill said, quote, I thought it was enough for them to arrest that guy, end quote, meaning Willie.
Right.
It wasn't. Police told him that they couldn't even obtain a search warrant based on hearsay. They needed an eyewitness report of criminal activity or the existence of physical evidence, and Lisa didn't or wouldn't give them one.
Okay.
Also in 1998, the boys Willie and Dave are sued by city officials for violating zoning ordinances. The Piggy Palace Good Time Society was zoned as a farm.
Yeah.
And they'd, quote, altered a large farm building on the land for the purpose of holding dances, concerts, and other recreations, end quote.
Yep.
Other recreations is just an understatement.
Yeah.
Willie and Dave ignore all of this. They just keep on having parties. The good times are rolling at the Piggy Palace. Also, on a side note, Dave, Willie's brother, is arrested and charged with sexual assault in 1998 as well. But the women continue to go missing, like Angela Rebecca Jardine. Angela was born on June 23, 1971. When she's 27 years old, she'll last be seen on November 20th, 1998, between 3:30 and 4 p.m. at Oppenheimer Park at a rally in the downtown east side of Vancouver.
Okay.
She disappeared in a bright pink formal gown. She left behind in her hotel room an Easter card for her parents that she never gets a chance to mail.
So she wasn't from this area that...
She was staying in the area.
Really? Okay.
Then to finish off the year on December 31st, 1998, Willie and Dave host a New Year's Eve party at the Piggy Palace Good Time Society. But after this, they are slapped with an injunction banning any future parties. And now the police are now authorized to arrest and remove any person attending future events at the farm.
Okay.
Also, before we leave the year 1998, it's important to note that Detective Kim Rossmo is actually fired from the Vancouver police because he suggested to the media that there was a serial killer working the downtown Eastside area.
Why would they fire him?
They didn't want people to think that there was a serial killer in Vancouver. That's bad for business, honey.
It's like Jaws.
Yeah. The police department poo-pooed it, and the inspector, Gary Greer, told reporters, quote, "We're in no way saying there is a serial murderer out there," end quote. Gary, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Brenda Ann Wolfe, age 32, was last seen February 1999. A year later, somebody will report it. Also, Jennifer Lynn Firminger and Georgina Faith Papin also are last seen in 1999. On March 20th, 1999, an informant tells the Vancouver police that a single mother and drug addict named Lynn Ellingson had seen a woman's body hanging in Willie Pickton's slaughterhouse.
Ooh.
When questioned by the police, Lynn denied the story, but years later, she does admit that she had, in fact, seen a woman's body hanging in the slaughterhouse, and she didn't report it because she was afraid that Willie Pickton would kill her.
Yeah, of course.
And she depended on him to be one of her Johns. She's a sex worker, and she works in order to get drug money.
Right.
And she's actually going into the downtown East Side to help Willie pick up women.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But she told another person that she'd walked into Willie's slaughterhouse and had seen what she thought was a female body hanging from a meat hook. And Willie was standing beside it, cutting off strips of flesh from the body's legs.
Good grief.
And Lynn will later say that she didn't know that human fat was yellow.
Well, okay. So that's a pretty good witness.
That's a pretty good witness. And when all of this finally comes out, police are like, she's telling the truth because, that's true. Human fat is yellow.
Yeah.
On July 31st, 1999, the American television program America's Most Wanted airs a show highlighting the disappearance of all these women in the downtown Eastside area with a $100,000 reward, stating that there was a serial killer on the loose in Vancouver. Vancouver wasn't happy about it,
right,
but that's what they ran with.
Sure.
After the show airs, it prompted over 100 calls to the program's Washington headquarters, but according to authorities, quote, only 20 were thought to be useful with the task force as investigating them, end quote.
Okay.
One of the Vancouver's largest private detective agencies, CPA Confidence Group, offered 4 of their, quote, cadaver dogs, end quote, to search selected areas looking for decomposing human remains. There was even an attempt by local business leaders to give cell phones to sex workers with 911 on speed dial.
Okay.
But then they decided not to because they were afraid the sex workers would use their new phones, or toys as they called them, to conduct the sex trade business. Honestly, they might have done just that, but having the phone might have saved a life or two as well.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
On December 8th, 1999, Constable Drennan said nothing pointed toward a serial killer being involved. Quote, nothing at all suggests the existence of a serial killer, end quote.
Nothing to see here. Move
along. Yeah, we love it when people do that. Don't believe what you're seeing with your eyes and hearing with your own ears. Just believe exactly what we're telling you.
Exactly.
The women on the streets thought the constable was full of shit. And according to the executive director of the Women's Information Safe House, a drop-in center for sex trade workers, quote, "The women here don't talk about it very much because they're so scared," end quote.
Sure.
And no missing women had been reported since the case was featured on America's Most Wanted. So some people thought that, well, this guy is a border hopper, and maybe this is even the Green River Killer, who we now know as Gary Ridgway,
right,
coming in from the United States to satisfy his, murderous fantasies.
Right.
And some think that it's a snuff film ring or a lethal merchant marine crew kidnapping the women and murdering them at sea, because there are never any bodies.
Right.
So there are loads of theories floating around out there. In May of 1999, the Vancouver Police Department put together a missing persons review team, but it lacked the resources that would be given to a homicide investigation.
Why?
No body, no crime.
Yeah.
No bodies.
Yeah.
And while there are no bodies, Willie is out bragging to people about his meat grinder and saying to people, if you ever need to dispose of a body or anything, I'm paraphrasing that, but that's what he said.
Right.
I'm your guy.
Jeez.
That's what he's telling people.
How cocky can you get?
Very well. Remember, we said he wants to be a big shot, wants to be a big guy.
Yeah.
Also in 1999, Canadian police receive a tip that Willie had a freezer filled with human flesh on his farm. This source said he'd seen handcuffs in Willie's bedroom and a special freezer in his barn from which he had been served, quote, strange meat, end quote. And this source believed that the meat was human.
Jeez.
And this same source talked about Willie's friend, Lynn Ellingson, who told him that she had seen a body hanging inside Willie's slaughterhouse.
Right.
Can you imagine all the people who ate from there or from that slaughterhouse or got sausages or whatever from there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Well, it's like motel hell.
Yeah.
Where they plant the people. If you're not Gen X, you don't know this movie. But they planted people in the ground and put these bags over their head. Then they force-fed them, and then they turned them into sausage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gross.
Go look that one up. Motel Hell.
I'm going to stick to Ricky Bobby.
Now, because the location of the slaughterhouse fell under the jurisdiction of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, they had to move the investigation forward. And the RCMP, they go to Willie's farm. An officer shows up there, but he's told by Willie's brother Dave to, quote, come back during the rainy season, end quote.
Why?
Because they're too busy working.
Okay.
And so the Royal Mounted Canadian Police, they wait another 4 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. There's some investigation.
The Canadians are so polite.
They really are.
Don't come back. Yeah, we need some time. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt your working.
When they finally show up, they interview Willie, who says, no, I didn't kill any missing women, and I don't have any human flesh in my freezer. He even gives his consent for the Canadian police to search his farm. The police never come back and conduct a search of his farm.
Good grief. Then
another girl goes missing. Tiffany Drew, last seen December 1999, and now the count is up to 30 women missing. Now, when Willie tried to keep the Piggy Palace open, even after they lost their nonprofit status, they couldn't show any financial statements for the establishment, and they were actually officially closed down in the year 2000.
Okay.
And by the end of the year 2000, Dawn Teresa Cray was reported missing December 2000, and Deborah Lynn Jones was last seen in December of 2000. By now, there are relatives of the missing women and organizations of DTES. They're holding rallies and demanding that the police do something. Do something.
Anything.
And in January of 2001, the Vancouver Police and the RCMP formed Project Even-Handed, a joint task force to investigate the missing women from the downtown East Side.
Okay.
Do you realize how many years this has been going on?
Yeah, I mean, good. Willie he's basically has the confidence just to keep doing this because he knows he's not going to get caught. Nobody's interested. These girls are under the radar. It's just, he's got the world by the, you know what?
By the pig.
Yeah. There you go.
By the pig's tail.
There you go.
So this task force is going to re-examine the cases of the missing and the murdered sex workers in the province of British Columbia. They pulled in as many sex offenders and predators they knew of in the area, and they put together a list of 100 men.
Okay.
But they didn't rank them by priority. So even though they had all this information about Willie, calls in about the freezer, calls in about the meat grinder, the guy who worked for him, Hiscox calling in, Willie wasn't suspect number one.
Was it because he had money in the... I mean, I can't think
know
why they wouldn't go after him.
He's a little guy who just smells bad, and I think they just think maybe he's harmless.
Or maybe he stinks so bad that they don't want to deal with him.
Maybe. But then Patricia Rose Johnson goes missing. She's last seen in March of 2001. Yvonne Marie Bowen, age 34, last seen March 16th, 2001. Heather Chinook, age 30, last seen in April of 2001. Heather Kathleen Bottomley, age 25. She's last seen in April 17th of 2001. Andrea Joesbury, age 22, last seen in June of 2001. Serena Abbotsway, age 29, last seen in August 2001. Diane Rosemary Rock, age 34, October 19th, 2001. She's reported missing December 13th, 2001. And finally, in 2001, Mona Lee Wilson, who was aged 26, was last seen on November 23rd, 2001.
Wow.
In February of 2002, Scott Chubb, a former employee of Willie and his brother Dave, he drove a truck for them. Mm-hmm. He tells the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Port Coquitlam that he had personally seen illegal guns in Willie's trailer. Mm. And that information met the official requirement for a search warrant.
Right.
I've seen the guns. I know where they are.
Mm-hmm.
So they head over to the farm.
Uh-oh.
On February 5th, 2002, a junior Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer, he's a rookie, and he's all by himself, and he executes a search warrant for illegal firearms at the Pickton family farm that's owned by Willie, Dave, and Linda. Mm-hmm. And while they're executing the search for the illegal guns, he sees out of the corner of his eye a prescription asthma inhaler. Now, I have one of these. Rob has one of these. Mm-hmm. He picks it up, and the name on the prescription is Serena Abbotsway, one of the missing women. She went missing in August of 2001.
Wow.
The farm was sealed off. And the following day, Willie was charged with storing a firearm contrary to regulations, possession of a firearm while not being holder of a license, and possession of a loaded restricted firearm without a license.
Okay.
Now, they didn't have any bodies, so he was released on bail. But he's kept under surveillance because the only charges they had on him were for the guns.
Right.
Yeah. But they release him.
It's kind of like with Al Capone when they slapped him with tax evasion, and that's how they got him into prison.
Yeah, they had to get to him one way or another.
Exactly.
So they put him under surveillance. They don't allow him to return to the pig farm. And while this is happening, they're getting a second search warrant for the farm. And within hours, the Pickton farm and property became the site of the largest crime scene search in Canadian history.
Wow.
What they found at the pig farm were handcuffs, women's clothing, women's shoes, jewelry. In the freezer that Willie used to store unsold meat, they found skulls cut in half with hands and feet stuffed inside.
Oh.
The remains of another victim were stuffed into a garbage bag in the bottom of a trash can. Her blood-stained clothes were in Willie's trailer, where he lived.
Jeez.
Part of one victim's jawbone and teeth were found on the ground beside the slaughterhouse, along with ID cards, purses, and more human teeth. Not One body was fully intact.
Man.
They also find a .22 caliber revolver with a big, spiky, black Hindu-made dildo over the barrel. This contained the DNA of Willie and one of his victims. Wow. They found this in the laundry room, by the way, because I guess that's where you keep that kind of thing.
Gee whiz.
Later, Willie's going to tell police that the dildo was used as a makeshift silencer. Really?
I was about ready to say.
Really?
Man.
They also found in his trailer property of Mona Lee Wilson, who went missing November 23rd, 2001, boxes of .357 Magnum handgun ammo, night vision goggles. I mean, it's very much going Silence of the Lambs at this point.
Wow.
2 pairs of faux fur-lined handcuffs, a syringe with 3 millimeters of blue liquid inside, and Spanish fly, which is a sexual stimulant that can cause priapism, which is a painful, persistent, and dangerous erection lasting more than 4 hours.
What's that old joke? The Viagra joke? Hey, if you have an
erection longer than 4 hours, call your doctor.
Yeah, I'm not going to call my doctor. I'm going to call my buddies and brag about it.
I'm calling everybody. I'm calling everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
The police, of course, question everyone, including Willie's friend, Scott Chubb, who made the call about the guns. Scott tells the authorities on tape that Willie had told him that a good way to kill a female heroin addict was to inject her with windshield wiper fluid.
Ooh.
And what did they find in one of the syringes in Willie's house?
Yep.
Yeah, blue liquid.
Wow.
The police also get a statement from a man named Andrew Bellwood. Andrew tells police that Willie mentioned to him that he'd killed prostitutes by handcuffing them, strangling them, then bleeding and gutting them before feeding them to the pigs. Now, based on the statement given by Andrew Bellwood and the evidence the police found, they believe that because the details of each murder, including how they were killed and disposed of, are really unknown, but they now know that Willie would bring sex workers he had picked up at the downtown Eastside back to his farm. There he would handcuff and rape them. Then he would strangle them to death, bleed the body, remove the guts, and put the body through a wood chipper. What was left was fed to his pigs or taken to the rendering plant. Another thought is that he ground up the victims' bodies and mixed that in with mincemeat to create sausages. Sausages that were given to his family and friends to eat.
Jeez.
Motel hell.
Yeah.
On Friday, February 22nd, 2002, William Pickton was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Serena Abbotsway and Mona Lee Wilson. On April 2nd, 2002, 3 more charges were added for the murders of Jacqueline McDonald, Diane Rock, and Heather Bottomley. A 6th charge for the murder of Andrea Joesbury came in on April 9th, 2002, followed shortly by a 7th for Brenda Wolfe. Then just a day after Willie's arrest, an undercover cop joins Willie in his jail cell in Surrey, British Columbia, where he's being held. Willie, unbeknownst to him, was sharing a cell with a Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer that he thought was another detainee.
Okay.
This Mountie gains trust, and he starts to get Willie to talk, and it's pretty brilliant. Willie tells him that they got me on this one, they got DNA, and he tells the Mountie that a rendering plant is better than the ocean for disposing a body.
Wow.
Willie confesses that he got sloppy at the end and that it's, quote, f***ing bad, end quote. He adds, quote, I was going to do one more, make it an even 50. That's why I was sloppy. I wanted more. Make the big 5-0, end quote.
Whiz. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's chilling.
Willie also tells this undercover Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer, quote, really pisses me off. I was just gonna do one more to make it even. Bigger than these, bigger than the ones in the States. His record were only 42, they says.
Wow.
I don't know which serial killer he's talking about here.
Right.
But he says, I'm a legend already. The whole world knows about me, all the way to Hong Kong to everywhere, end quote.
Oh, man. What a sick, twisted guy this is.
On September 20th, 2002, 4 more charges were added for the slayings of Georgina Papin, Patricia Johnson, Helen Hallmark, and Jennifer Firminger. Then he's charged with 4 more murders. Heather Chinnock, Tanya Holk, Sherry Irving, and Inga Hall were all laid on October 3rd, 2002, bringing the total to 15, making the investigation the largest of any serial killer in Canadian history.
Man.
On May 26, 2005, he's charged with 12 more. And I have listed all of these women for a reason, because I want to say their names. We always talk about the fact that the podcast isn't just about the person who's committing the homicide, but about the victims.
Exactly.
But this brings the total number of first-degree murder charges to 27. They're charging him as they're uncovering body parts and they're able to make identifications.
Wow.
Excavations continued through November of 2003, costing the Canadian government $70 million.
Jeez.
They demolished all the buildings, but forensic analysis was very difficult because the bodies of the victims may have been left to decompose or allowed to be eaten by insects and pigs on the farm.
Right.
During the early days of the excavations, forensic anthropologists brought in heavy equipment, including 2 50-foot flat conveyor belts and soil sifters to try to find traces of remains, and police took 200,000 DNA samples and sifted through 383 cubic yards of soil, looking for human remains.
Amazing.
When all was said and done, the DNA of 33 women were found on Willie's farm.
Wow.
Now, during the preliminary inquiry, they discovered that Willie was picked up for attempted murder in 1997 when he tried to stab Wendy, remember?
Yeah, right, yeah.
And he's let go. But police remember, they kept his clothes and the rubber boots that Willie was wearing.
Right.
They were sitting in storage for 7 years, actually.
Right.
They tested those and found the DNA of 2 more missing women.
Jiminy.
When the trial began on January 30th, 2006 in New Westminster, he pleaded guilty to all 27 charges of first-degree murder in the Supreme Court of British Columbia. It was a full year before they could determine what evidence would be shown to the jury. But on March 2nd, 2006, one of the 27 counts was rejected by Justice James Williams because of lack of evidence. There are traces of these missing women, no bodies, only a few parts, which I'll get to in a moment.
Okay.
But then on August 9th, 2006, Justice Williams split the charges, one group of 6 counts and another group of 20 counts. And the 6 he chose were, quote, materially different evidence, end quote, than the other 20. And those 6 were Marnie Frey, Serena Abbotsway, Georgina Papin, Andrea Joesbury, Brenda Wolfe, and Mona Wilson. And tons of the evidence will never be heard by a jury. And even though the press knew there was a publication ban until August 4th of 2010, none of the evidence that was rejected came out during the actual trial, and the media did not report on it.
Really?
Because there was a ban.
Uh-huh.
Now, can you imagine that happening in the United States?
Oh, my God.
The National Enquirer would be all over that.
Yeah.
They'll be like, we'll pay the fine.
Yeah.
We're good. We'll pay the fine.
Yeah, TMZ would be sitting on their doorstep.
Yeah, well, it's worth more to us. We'll just pay the fine.
Yeah.
On January 22nd, 2007, the trial begins. This is the first time the people of Canada are hearing of what actually happened on the pig farm. And 11 months later, Crown Counsel Daryl Previtt tells the jury that on December 9th, 2007, the jury found Robert William Pickton not guilty of first-degree murder, but guilty of second-degree murder.
What?
For each of the 6 women they could identify.
Why second degree?
I don't know. I guess they figured they couldn't prove that it was premeditated.
Okay.
After all these bodies.
That's the funniest thing I've heard today.
Well, it gets better.
Jeez.
He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Okay.
And remember Bill Hiscox? Well,
Yeah.
he thought his calls into Crime Stoppers back in 1998 would keep Willie from doing more harm. But it took 4 years before police did anything.
Wow.
And he told the media, quote, "I thought all they had to do was get their foot in the damn door," end quote.
Jeez.
Yeah. It actually took a rookie cop who wasn't even involved in the investigation getting this warrant to search Willie's house for these illegal guns.
Amazing.
Willie has exhausted his appeals, and the court is not going after Willie for the 20 or more, or according to him, close to 50 other women he raped, murdered, wood-chipped, or fed to the pigs.
Yeah.
This because Willie already had the maximum sentence for murder in Canada.
Yeah.
He was committed to British Columbia's Kent Institution.
Okay.
In 2014, the victim's children sued 3 levels of government and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The 13 plaintiffs filed civil suits against the city of Vancouver and several Mounties, saying the Vancouver police and the RCMP were negligent when they investigated the reports of the missing sex workers and the possibility that Willie could be responsible for it.
Right.
They also said the Crown was wrong when they didn't lock up Willie after the attempted murder of Wendy Lynn Eistetter. Each of these people received $50,000. Now, here's the thing, kids. Remember Willie, his brother Dave, and his sister Linda have millions of dollars. Millions.
Yeah.
His brother denies any knowledge of Willie's crimes, but there are lots of people who say, how could his brother not know?
Yeah,
they ran the farm together. They ran the Piggy Palace Good Time Society together.
Yep.
Their employees knew what was going on. How could his brother not know?
Yep.
Dave has said that he doesn't think Willie killed the women, stating, quote, "I'm baffled. I beat my head against the wall. He couldn't operate equipment. He didn't have the intelligence, the coordination. It's a nightmare for me knowing I was not watching what was going on in my own backyard," end quote.
Thanks, Dave.
And if you believe that, I've got some swamp land to sell you for $18,000.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
In 2016, a book titled Pickton, in his own words, went up for sale on Amazon. While in prison, Willie had written and given his manuscript to a former cellmate who sent it to a retired construction worker from California named Michael Childress, who then typed it up and is credited as the author of the 144-page book. But a petition on change.org got it removed. I did see a comment that the book wasn't well written. Duh. He could barely put a sentence together when he was speaking.
Exactly.
After Willie's crimes proved to make him the most successful serial killer in Canada, a provincial government inquiry was established to examine the Pickton case and how it was handled by authorities. In December 2012, the Missing Women Commission of Inquiry issued its final report titled Forsaken, and following the report, the Vancouver Police Department implemented several policy and procedural changes to its missing persons investigations. The Missing Persons Unit was made a regular part of the police department. Investigations are required to begin without delay. Family members are advised regularly and consulted before the release of information, and the case file is kept open until the missing person is located.
Good.
Around 2018, about 6 years ago, Willie was moved to the Port Coquitlam institution. It's believed he was moved for his own safety and not the safety of other inmates. According to one report, he was short, frail, and 5 feet nothing. The farm where the murders took place is still fenced off by Canadian authorities. There are lots of photos hanging on the fences of Willie's victims.
Yeah.
Willie Pickton sat in the Port Coquitlam institution in the province of Quebec. He was actually able to apply for parole in February of 2024.
Really?
This year.
Wow.
I don't think that actually happened.
Yeah.
But on May 19th of this year, 2024, old Willie is stabbed by another inmate.
Oh, really?
The Canadian authorities won't release any other information about the attack other than to say it was a major assault. And I guess major assault is one way to put it because Robert William Pickton was in a medically induced coma and on life support until he died in the hospital from his injuries on May 31st, 2024.
Poetic justice.
He was 74 years old.
Wow.
Now, the families of his victims are in a bit of a fight with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, who are applying to dispose of evidence from the Pickton farm. And as of May of this year, the application to destroy 14,000 pieces of evidence remained before the courts and is still an ongoing process. The police have met with more than 20 families to explain that the items found on the farm that belong to their loved ones will be returned to them. But they are trying to destroy a ton of this evidence. I think they're trying to put it all behind them. It's still just fenced off property.
Yeah. And they're trying to cover their butts too.
For sure. Let's make it go away.
Yeah.
You know, you come into town. What do you want to go see? Oh, that's where the biggest serial killer in Canadian history killed all of his women.
Yep.
And those are pictures of them on the fence.
It's not like they have the world's largest rubber band ball.
They do not.
Okay.
But that is the story of Robert William Pickton. They called him Willie. They also called him Pork Chop Rob. And that's all I have to say about that. She is only one, but what if one is all that's needed? Hospice nurse Indy Luce has fallen in love. After caring for billionaire Louis Thornberry until his final breath, she's now engaged to marry the heir apparent of the global tech empire, David Thornberry. But as the divinely marked Indy packs up her old life to begin anew, a sacred promise comes back to haunt her with a vengeance. As an unrelenting spiritual battle unfolds in the shadows, the descendants of those like Indy find themselves persistently lured and ensnared as a relentless surge of evil becomes an unstoppable force. With malevolent entities following her every step, what Indy doesn't know about her family's sacred covenant could tip the scales of good and evil. The follow-up to the paranormal suspense novel Lead Me From Temptation and Book 2 of the Divine Darkness series, Deliver Me From Evil, is now available March 29th, 2024, wherever you buy or download books, or go to chriscalvert.com. If evil prowls seeking someone to devour, can one woman seek and save that which is lost?
The only question I have is, you know, the Mountie that was in jail with him as an undercover.
Right.
He got a full confession from him and all that stuff. And then they still gave him second-degree murder?
Second-degree murder. No, but they didn't have a body. No witnesses.
But when you confess to something...
Yeah, if I feel like if it had been in the United States and somebody's going to email me, an attorney or a judge, because they do, is going to email me and say, I have this all wrong. I think if they were in the United States, there would be enough circumstantial evidence for a jury of Americans to say, put him in the chair.
Yeah.
Put him in the electric chair.
Right.
But it's Canada.
Yeah.
And, you know, they came to search the property, and they're like, hey, come back in 4 months. Right. And they're like, okay.
Sorry we bothered you.
Sorry. We'll come back in 4 months. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't like that.
Yeah, I know.
But at the same time, because these people who were disappearing were drug addicts and sex workers, they were at the bottom of the list of people they were trying to help save or look for. Right, no big deal. Which is a shame, which is really a shame.
Yeah, I'm glad the laws are actually, their protocol has changed.
Yes. I mean, if anything good came out of it, that is it. They did change a lot of the way that they work these cases now. Well, speaking of change, let's change this topic and go to a little bless your heart.
Well, bless your heart.
All right, this first one I'm calling Hers is Bigger.
I don't know if I want to know this.
Well, a flasher in Washington state got more than he bargained for when he exposed himself to a woman and her 6-year-old son.
Okay, wait a second.
Yeah.
A male flasher?
Mm-hmm.
And the title of this is Hers is Bigger?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, keep going.
The 35-year-old woman and child were walking along a lake when the man approached her, aggressively unzipped his pants and said, Miss, could you watch this? You need to watch this.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Instead, the woman indicated that he should look at her Ruger 38 caliber pistol. I put the magazine in my gun. I cocked it, the woman told the Daily News Online. I said, you need to leave or I'll shoot you. I'm going to blow your brains out.
I bet that's not all she was planning on blowing off.
Yep. The man said, expletive. The man declared before running away. So there you go. Is that awesome or what?
You go, girl. Oh, my God. I'm crying right now. Oh, that's too good. Have you ever been flashed, Rob?
No, I have not. No.
I've been flashed before. I'm just going to say it.
Oh,
I was
really?
flashed once.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Why would anybody do that?
I didn't have a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just kept walking. I was unimpressed.
I think the comment that would just make them go away is like, oh, it must be really cold out.
I didn't say anything. I just was like, kept walking.
All right. Number 2, it's all about the Lincolns.
Okay.
A Rhode Island man using counterfeit $100 bills to make purchases at a Target store made a monumental mistake. The bills had a picture of President Lincoln on them.
Oh, he didn't know that was a $5 bill.
Right. Real $100 bills have Benjamin Franklin's face on the front, and Lincoln's portrait appears on $5 bills, like you said.
Which is why they're called Benjamins.
Exactly. 3 consecutive days, Dana Leyland, 29, went to a Target in Attleboro, Massachusetts, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and allegedly purchased socks and other items with counterfeit bills, then left the store with the change, police said. So
the person who took the...
They took the Lincolns.
Probably didn't look at them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean...
We're going to give them a break, but that's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. All right, number 3, and finally, Doogie Howser, fake MD.
I loved Doogie Howser.
I know. The Florida teen convicted of impersonating a physician's assistant and practicing medicine without a license was sentenced to a year in jail.
What? A teenager did this?
The attorney for Matthew Scheit, that's his name, Scheit. Oh, Scheit. 18, said her client was an overachiever motivated by fantasy, not malicious intent.
I'm Dr. Scheit. I'll be taking care of you today.
Oh, Scheit. Investigators said Scheit administered CPR on a hospital patient. Scheit's attorney argued it was the hospital's fault since Scheit was given the wrong hospital identification.
Oh, my God. What was he supposed to have, like janitor or?
Yeah. The teen burst into tears when the verdict was read at the August trial. And here's the kicker. Scheit still faces charges for impersonating a police officer.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
This is Catch Me If You Can.
All the way.
All the way.
So, Mr. Scheit, you're in some deep shite.
Officer Scheit. That was too good. Those were excellent, honey. Excellent. 10s across the board today.
I'm taking a virtual bow right now.
Well, if you have a bless your heart, or you know somebody's heart who needs blessing, or somebody named Scheit who's impersonating somebody else, or if you've got a good flasher story,
Yep.
all you have to do is go to hitchtohomicide.com where there's a pull-down menu. And while you're there, you can also suggest a case and tell us about your brush with true crime or your own true crime story, if you've met with a flasher, possibly.
Oh, man.
That's all we have today. That's my amazing husband out there.
And that's my beautiful bride in the booth.
Join us next time on Hitch to Homicide.
Bye, y'all.